Hello, hello. Ron Callis here with another episode of Automation Unplugged, brought to you by my day job over at One Firefly. Today is Wednesday, March 3rd, 2021. It is about 12:35, so it's just a few minutes after our normal starting time at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Let me go ahead, as I normally would do, let me jump over to Facebook and see if we're actually streaming, see if technology is behaving. So bear with me. All right, I think we're there. Yeah, I think we're live. Awesome. If you are live and tuning in, give us a like. Maybe drop into the comments. Tell me who you are, where you're coming to us from. That's always fun. And hey, there's Chuck. What's up, Chuck? Let me give Chuck a shout out. Chuck's coming to us from the Northeast in the U.S. How are you, sir? Thank you for tuning in. And you know what's fun? If you're dropping a comment there, telling us where you're coming from, if you're dropping a comment to say hello, I love that. Also, tell us, maybe give us a region or a city or a state. Tell us where you're coming to us from. I think that's always fun to see. We have generally an audience tuning in from around the world, and it's always fun to see. And it helps you got to work the Facebook algorithm a little bit. So if you guys like and interact with the content, it ultimately pushes the show out to more people. So yes, there is an ulterior motive, but I do want to say hi. What's going on here in Firefly land? You know, the good news, the exciting news in One Firefly land is we've never been busier. I think there's a sea change that's happening across our industry, and that is integrators are realizing more today than ever before that the way they present their business on the internet, in this world where we're all zoomed out and we're in video conferences all day long, and we're not necessarily doing as much face-to-face, the world of how you present your personal image and your company image on the internet, it matters. And I think everyone's realizing that. And the pleasant result here at One Firefly is, oh my goodness, or is there a lot of moving and shaking going on? So I'm not going to lie, it's been a lot of early mornings and late nights for a lot of weeks and a lot of months in a row. But, you know, as I always say, be careful what you ask for. And love that we have an audience tuning in. Thank you all for signing in to watch. I know you're not here to listen to me, so we're going to go ahead and bring in my guest. I've known this fella for many years. Back in I've personally been a CEDIA instructor. CEDIA is on the residential side of the business, you know, the global trade association for the custom integration industry. And I'd say they lean more on the residential side, and you have a VIXA on the commercial side, or maybe NSCA as well. But I've been a volunteer on the CEDIA side since around 2010. And that's when I really got to know Shawn, my guest, because he is has been a longtime CEDIA volunteer. Not only does he run his own business up in Buffalo, New York, but he's just been a significant volunteer in many different capacities for CEDIA, giving back to the industry. So I've had the pleasure of getting to know him, and both as a friend and as a mentor, and he's a customer here at One Firefly, for full disclosure. So, by the way, thank you for everyone signing in and saying hello. Love to see all the names and faces. We'll put some of those on the screen here in just a minute. But let me go ahead and get you introduced to Shawn Lemay, President and CEO at Sound and Theater. I don't know if he says theater or theater. I'm from the South, so I say theater. Sound and theater. And let me bring in Shawn. Shawn?
Hi there.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Theater.
Theater. It's not theater?
It's not theater. It's theater.
You can't even bring yourself to say theater.
That's tough. That's tough.
That's fine. I'm from Virginia, and when necessary, I can bring out my draw and bring out my y'all and all those good things.
I'm from the New England area, and every now and then you'll hear a slight tang of a Boston accent that'll come through, and people pick on me for that. So
I totally just heard it right there. I heard that Boston accent. Why don't you inform our audience maybe a little bit about your business first, just kind of where are you guys based, what type of work do you guys do, and then as always, I want to jump into kind of your backstory.
sure. Well, Silent Theater was established. Actually, it was 2001. We were a company called S&T Enterprises primarily, and we started doing primarily wire pulling and smaller networks and whatnot and that sort of stuff. It wasn't until we were doing that for a couple of years, and we slowly started to grow into the residential area where we started adding and playing with the Philips Prano type remotes, the infrared universal remotes, and getting into very small home systems, and integrating the technology and that sort of stuff. And it wasn't until roughly 2004, 2005 or so that we discovered CEDIA, went to our very first trade show, and then also at that time discovered Control 4. And, they were a brand new company, did not have any product shipping or anything like that. But we decided at that point that was a product line we wanted, and that kind of transformed our company. We became Sound and Theater. We took the initials, the S&T, and we had to find a name to fit those. So Sound and Theater is where that came from.
Where did the original S&T, remind me where that came from?
It was originally a play on my business partner's name and my name. So SHA for Shawn and TIM for Tim, for Timothy. Shaw-Tim Enterprises Incorporated is still to this day our legal name, but it's a DBA of Sound and Theater.
Got it. So when you discovered C4 in the mid 2000s and you took this path into integration in the home, that's when you became Sound and Theater.
That's about when, right. I mean, we saw the opportunity, not just Control 4, but it kind of opened our eyes as to the opportunity of the whole automation market. And we're in a very blue collar market. So, it's difficult to go into a home and sell, say, a Crestron system in this market. But Control 4's price point and everything just really hit that market. And we were so interested in, we started to build up an entire company and a model around that whole platform. Everything we were doing, we were putting that product into it, or at least that philosophy. It may not always have been that product, but it was that philosophy of we want to be integrating everything. We want to make it stupid, simple, easy to use.
Got it. And then bring us, just in terms of your business, bring us to the present. I mean, where does the business look like today? And what type of jobs do you guys find yourself doing?
Well, we do probably about 30% of our business is commercial. The rest is all residential. And we're doing anything from new construction to retrofit. We do quite a bit of retrofit. Our core specialty, as I said, is making it stupid, simple, easy. And the flip of it is hiding the technology. I know that's becoming easier and easier to do today, now that we're doing more streaming services built into TVs and that sort of stuff. But when we originated and started all of this, it was a set-top box for everything. You had your Blu-ray player, the cable box, you had, everything. So there was 5 remotes on the coffee table. There was 4 or 5 pieces in the rack at the TV. And, the wife factor was, this is disgusting, get it out of my living room. And that was our whole forte, was, again, making it easy and at the same time hiding it all. So all that was there was a TV and a single remote.
Do you find yourself, Shawn, primarily serving the Buffalo market? I mean, do you leave the city of Buffalo or the region of Buffalo and work throughout the state or throughout the Northeast, or is it primarily right there in your backyard?
We have, it's kind of a trick question. We've become nationally known as a go-to integrator when it comes to Control 4. So we've had customers come to us as far as Austin, Texas. We've got a number of customers in Florida. We've got customers up and down the East Coast, North Carolina, Virginia, Vermont, New Hampshire. So all in between, we've got clients that have go to. But our primary market focus is the Western New York market. So we actually service on a daily basis, probably as far east as Syracuse, and that's probably a good 2-hour drive from here. We don't necessarily cross the Canadian border. If you know, geographically, Buffalo sits right on the U.S.-Canadian border. We are up in Niagara Falls, which is only a 30-minute drive. But then we go, again, primarily probably down to the Pennsylvania line, which is 2 hours south of us. So I'd say a good 2-hour ring.
Now that I want to later in the show, I want to get into, pandemic and kind of how you guys have coped, but just you telling me that you're right there in Buffalo on the border. I want to say, I think I know that Canada's had a pretty strong quarantine or they closed down the border. Is that accurate?
Still closed. It's still closed for a year now.
What does that mean for life in Buffalo? I mean, what is the city dynamic life like before and after? That's got to be.
I'm going to get shot for saying this, but all the good beaches are on the Canadian side. So summer has been different last year for sure. If you've been to Niagara Falls as a tourist, the Canadian side is definitely where it flourishes. The U.S. side is sadly lacking quite a bit. So we've managed, but we can't wait until that day that the border is going to open again.
Is there what's the current state of affairs? What does it look like? When might that happen?
It's month to month, and it just got pushed out again another month. So we're already looking at April now before they'll consider opening the border. And I'm betting you, you know what? I take that back. Right now, I think it's still the end of March, maybe March 21st, 22nd, somewhere around there. But it'll definitely get pushed out again. They've been month to month, so it'll get pushed out to April. And hopefully, as vaccination rates and stuff like that go up, we're going to start to see those rates go down and the Canadian border be a little more interested in opening up their doors once again.
Now, Ted just posted a comment. He says, how about them Bills?
I'm with you, Ted. We're very proud of them this year. Sadly, I'm actually a big hockey fan and have season tickets to the Buffalo Sabres, and they are the opposite of our Buffalo Bills. So we just watch the Bills now. We watch the reruns right now because watching the Sabres has been tough.
Got it. Love that. Okay, so I want to learn and understand, how did this all start for you, Shawn? What did you study in school? What's the origin story of how you landed to be this nationally recognized integrator, doing lots of volunteering in the trade association and having a nice, strong business? What did you knew you were going to do this from day one, or what did the beginning look like?
I was going to say, how far back do you want me to go?
I was born. Maybe we'll post high school. Let's go post high school. What did you do next?
Well, I'm not native to Western New York. I'm actually a New Englander. I was born and raised in Vermont. So I moved at the very young age of 18. A company here called Ingram Micro hired me out of the blue, unprecedented, didn't have a college degree, and they typically only hire those with college degrees, but hired me to become a sales rep here. And their East Coast operations were based out of Buffalo. So I agreed. Moved to Buffalo, started working for them, and very quickly, ran up the ranks and became a senior sales rep for them within, I want to say it was probably 3.5 years, which is almost unheard of. That gave me a lot of my IT networking background. Ingram was very huge in promoting education. They're sales reps. If you're educated, you know the product, that sort of stuff. And of course, I've always had an IT, a fad for IT, and always a fetish for it that I've loved to tinker and explore it and whatnot. So that just only helped further things. While I was still working at Ingram, I then actually went into, I wanted to finish my college degree, which I never actually did. So I went to a college here in Buffalo called Medaille College. Went night school, evenings, weekends, summer. And to add to the topping of that, I want to say it was probably around 1996, a colleague of mine at Ingram and I decided to open an internet service providing company. At the time, the only ISPs that existed were AOL, and they charged per minute. So I had the IT background and the knowledge. And at the time, my business partner for that company had some of the savvy and the marketing skills to make it work. And we started a company called Web Technologies. So
you became an alternative for the customer that did not want to use AOL, you've got mail.
You've got mail. And that was exactly it. We were a flat rate. And of course, our growth went through the roof when AOL also went flat rate, and they had busy signals galore because they didn't have the infrastructure to support it. We, of course, did. So we went through and smashing success. So I would literally go to work in the morning at 8 in the morning. I'd leave work at 5 to go to another office and work there until 10, 11 o'clock at night, go home, go to bed, get up the next day and repeat it. Or I'd be going to college. I'd go leave
So
work.
you worked at Ingram Micro. You were running a startup business as an ISP, going head-to-head with AOL.
Mm-hmm.
And you were getting a college degree.
Yep.
All in the same week.
All at the same time. Simultaneously. You got it. So that was being 20s.
That sounds
lots of energy, non-married life, no kids. Yeah, lots of time to do those kind of things.
That sounds very tiring.
It was after a few years, for sure. So yeah, by mid 90s, 98, almost 99, I actually left Ingram and did the web technology thing for another year or two, and did that full time. Helped pick up, and I was able to get my bachelor's degree in business management in the 4-year timeline. So that was going to school again, weekends and nights, and filling in with summer school and stuff like that to make sure that I wasn't one of those 5 or 6 year degree candidates. But then after that, the dial-up internet market started to fall apart and stuff like that. So eventually I started moving over into, I met another colleague who is today my present business partner, Tim. And we started seeing a lack of where we could make some money. We thought pulling wires and doing some very low end, IT needs for some companies and homes and stuff like that. And thus, in 2001, S&T Enterprises was born.
To go back to the ISP, were you able to spin that off or sell that? I mean, it seems like you'd have monthly subscribers that, in theory, would have been worth something, right?
Yep. No. We able to take that. I actually ended up becoming a business partner for another company, an ASP company at the time, doing web development and web application design and development and that sort of stuff. And then I actually sold off my portion of that company and then became this company, S&T.
Okay, so there was an exit for you in that effort.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Got it. So you were there. You entered this industry. It's neat. I didn't connect the dots before this interview, or before you and I were chatting just before going live. You and I essentially entered this space, the custom integration space, in a similar time frame. I entered in 2000, and you pivoted to custom integration. You said around 04, 05?
Around 04, 05, we really went into the home automation market aspect of it. For the first 3 years prior to that, it was more of the tinkering with it. It was kind of a side gig. It was kind of let's see what we could do. Let's see if we can make this become something, kind of an exploratory company, to be honest with you. I mean, at the time, that would have been my third company that I'd owned. So, it was kind of a let's figure it out type of approach. Let's see what the industry is. And that's about when, I'm guessing it was 04, 05, somewhere around there, that I went to my first CEDIA, and literally my eyeballs popped out of my head because it was such an eye opener as to what the industry could be. And here in the Buffalo, New York market, there was nobody here. That just wasn't existent. I mean, there was a couple companies doing some of this sort of stuff, but there was nobody really doing this aspect of it. So, after walking the CEDIA, and I want to say that was in Indianapolis, was my first CEDIA around that time frame. I came back so invigorated with life to start building a company around these concepts that I had saw. And fast forward to 2021, and that's where we are today. Is 70% of our business is the residential market space, and it's all encompassed around making it stupid, simple, easy, and hiding that technology.
I love that. I want to start pulling some, jumping into some additional topics here. I'm going to give just a couple of quick shout outs. Jeremy says, hello. Hey, Ron and Shawn. Hello, Jeremy. Thanks for tuning in. Allison says, great to have you on the show, Shawn. So thank you, Allison.
Thank you.
And Jason says, welcome to the show. I'll do one more. Carlos says, hey, Ron, saludos from Mexico. What's up, Mr. Carlos?
Carlos, Jason, Tom, Allison, Ted, all of you. Thanks for coming. I'm a boring guy. I don't know why you wanted to come watch me.
Yeah, exactly? Of all the shows to watch, guys, this one, really? No. Shawn, you're fascinating. You don't even know it. I think there's a song there.
Do you sing?
No, definitely not. Everyone would leave immediately if I started trying to belt a tune. Sometimes when I drink, I've been known to sing, but I try to keep that to a minimum.
Haven't we all?
Haven't we all?
Isn't that why they put karaoke's into bars?
Exactly. I think there's a reason. What's up, Joe? Joe Whitaker.
Mr. Whitaker.
He just tuned in. All right. So 2020, how did that wrap up for you? What went right? What didn't go right? I mean, we all know, obviously, the stressors on everyone on the planet in 2020. So how did you make out personally and professionally?
Well, as I said before, we're kind of a Buffalo, New York, which is kind of a blue-collar market. So it definitely doesn't follow the trends of a lot of other marketplaces. And the typical mindset in this market is, I don't mean this negatively, but it's definitely that penny pinching atmosphere. Everybody saves the buck when they can versus other markets. And I joke and say that, we've got quite a bit of snowbirds that fly down to Florida in our winters. I mean, Buffalo winters, we're nationally known for them. And the snowbirds, they'll go down to their homes, their second homes down in Florida, and they'll always promote, I spent $100,000 on putting this home theater in, come look at it, that sort of stuff. In this marketplace, people are the exact opposite. Same homeowner, but because they're standing in Buffalo, New York, they're literally saying, look at the $25 that I saved on, the paint job or whatever it is that I did. It's that marketplace. So we were expecting to lose money last year. We were expecting a downturn. And then I was pleasantly surprised to see at the end of the year that we actually maintained. So we didn't really grow, but we didn't lose any market share or revenue. So we were very happy and pleasant for that. But we've come into 2021 on a huge up. I mean, our numbers are up right now, I'd say about 25, almost 30% from a year ago. And that's even when we say a year ago, that's pre-pandemic. I mean,
Q1, you could argue, is mostly revenue, booked or jobs booked in 19. So that was not affected by COVID yet.
Exactly. And people are, I think they're looking at it. They're getting bored. They're coming around. They're starting to think that, let's start doing some new stuff. Let's start upgrading. And again, that mindset of we're going to wait, we're going to be penny pinching. But now they're like, okay, we've been inside for a year now. We're time. It's time to do something.
Is that snowbird maybe not going to Florida because of quarantine or something? I mean, are they staying local and maybe they're deciding to upgrade their home?
I got to think that that's probably part of it. I mean, New York State does require it's now a 10-day, but it was a mandatory 2-week quarantine if you came back from another state. So yeah, I think that's definitely having people rethink that trip to Florida or that trip to wherever they were going to go.
All right, so I want to touch on a subject. I'm not trying to raise any feathers here or maybe the hairs on the back of your neck, but I know that I've heard that there are, and this is stating the obvious, there's a lot of supply chain issues. There's, I'm going back to say last summer. You're laughing, so clearly I'm poking the bear here. But last summer to the present, I've heard of all sorts of grief, from folks. What are you seeing right now?
I think it is a global shortage of just any device, anything. We've got AV receivers that are still to this day on back order from October. So that's now pushing 6 months. We have touch screens that we're being told we're not going to be able to see these until July, August, potentially. So the glass is on back order. The shortage of the DSP chips for receivers seems to be the glut and the reason for that. And that was the two factor. Not only did you have COVID and a pullback in production, but then you also had that major fire in the one manufacturing facility that was notorious for doing the DSP chips and stuff like that. So that's definitely there. We've seen everything from remote controls that have been back ordered to controllers to TVs that we can't get our hands on to, you name it. even some of the networking gear. I've still got back orders for several months now on access points from some vendors. It's been painful, but it hasn't been just related to our industry. It's been a global. I mean, I talk to the interior designers that we work with. They're saying the same things, that they're sitting there trying and waiting to get furniture and things like that, that typically are 4 to 6 weeks that are now taking, months and months. And, I say that ironically, because I had a couch, funny, that we ordered last February, a year ago, February, was supposed to be delivered in March, and it did not get delivered until June. Now, I get that a lot of that too was also the shutdowns because everybody went into quarantine right away. But that was the early signs of everything was going to become difficult to get. And I think most of the part, the customers are understanding of this because it's a global thing. It's not just us. They're seeing it everywhere. We were talking, like I've got a Logitech webcam. I remember when I bought this thing back in, I think it was April, maybe it was May. The thing was on back order for 2 months. So I know there was a demand and that sort of stuff, but it's across the entire industry, I think, in every aspect of everything that we're buying.
Are you finding some vendors are having less of a problem than others? And are you finding that you or your peers around the industry are in fact investigating other lines when maybe you normally wouldn't have because of differences, or is everyone uniformly being affected?
My aspect to it, from what I can see it seems to be across everybody. I mean, it's not just, say, the Snap AVs or the Control 4s or the ADIs, the distributors, or the Sonys or Samsungs or LGs or, fill in the blank. It's everybody. But yes, to what your second thought there, we are starting to explore, other product lines, amplifiers, for example, we weren't able to get from our primary sources. There are 2 different primary sources. We're back ordered. So we've gone and started to experiment with another vendors. I am always a little hesitant to jump into new product. I don't mind playing with it in-house, but it's very difficult to go and play with it at a customer's house, especially when it's not proven. My experience doing this now for 20 years, this is our 20th anniversary this year, has taught me that, if you play with something at the client's house, it's going to bite you in the ass later. And it almost always does. But because of the COVID and because of the pandemic, we're kind of forced into some of those cards, some of those situations. I mean, we're bringing them in-house and playing with new product that we wouldn't previously even think about. But after a week or two, you got to go back to the client with something. And so we're kind of, our beta testing, so to speak, in-house has become a very short-term beta test. It's the 2 to 3 week turnaround, and yet it didn't fail yet. It performed as we expected it would. Okay, we're going to go live with it.
Right. You're being forced to take some of those risks or change some of your processes just to cope.
Yeah. Yep.
To deal with the situation. Is there any insight that you're receiving from your vendors that anything's changing anytime soon with accessibility to products?
We're always hearing that.
Okay, so you're being given a bunch of lines, but you're not.
I was going to say, isn't that the job of the outside sales rep for every vendor, is to say, "Oh, it's going to get better. It's going to get better. Just give us a couple more weeks."
Yeah, just eat these donuts I brought to your office, and let's have fun, but let's not talk about that.
I've got some that are more truthful than others. Some that literally do say, "Oh yeah, it's going to be a couple of weeks," and then some that, as months go by, literally months go by, they have no more excuses, and they're just, they've given up on the excuses. And I've got others that are very upfront saying it's going to be July, August. It might show up before that, but we're being honest with you. The sense of touch screens. It's not the technology in the touch screens that's back ordered. It's the glass. Well, if I'm Control 4, I'm Crestron, I'm Milan, I'm AMX with trying to get touch screens, they're all buying basically the same glass, more or less, but they're not buying it in huge quantities like, say, Amazon or Samsung or, Apple with, for iPhones and all that kind of stuff. They're buying in, pallets of 1 million pieces. So those back orders take forever to get through. So yeah, we've got manufacturers that are being honest and saying, it's this part and this is what we're waiting for. And that's why we're telling you, yeah, it's probably going to be midsummer before you see it.
Business is, in your words, doing really well. And I've heard from manufacturers around the space that, Q3, Q4 2020 were exceptional. So far, Q1 looks exceptional. And so, we're lucky, roll of the dice. The residential custom integration space is doing well.
Mm-hmm.
We've fared better than most spaces. A lot of the manufacturers by default have not been able to go to trade show or buying group events because they haven't been held for the last 12 months.
Mm-hmm.
And the question is, when will they be held again? It's a big question mark. There's events planned for later this year. We'll see what happens. And so thus the savings are going right to the bottom line for them.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, their business is better than ever, and your business is better than ever. I'm setting all this up to get your perspective. What is the future of trade show or event gatherings? What's as an integrator serving the Buffalo market? How do you think about it? What will if events do happen, will you go? And if you will, why would you go?
I will tell you that we're Zoom fatigued. We're becoming a Zoom fatigue society. And this new medium for hosting meetings and talking to people. I've done interviews for job openings in our company via Zoom. We're getting really fatigued with it. And it's very easy to lose attention now in the online formats.
How did the online formats work for you, right? So a number of different players in our industry, from associations to manufacturers, have tried the virtual stuff. What do you think about them?
I'm not the fan. I mean, it's good. It's good to fill in, on-demand training and that sort of stuff. But the problem is because of that Zoom fatigue, it's too easy for us to tune out. I've got a 38-inch monitor here. So I've got this gigantic desktop space on my computer here. It's very easy to put a window over there with the training in it, but yet do some programming on a project or do some tech support or do some marketing or check my emails over on the other side. And when I do that, I become disconnected with what I'm actually supposed to be paying attention to, concentrating on. So I'm picking up maybe a third of the content when really I should be picking up on 2/3 of that content, because we know nobody ever picks up 100% of any training. So that's the first problem. But the reason, at least for me and my company, why we go to trade shows is not necessarily the most obvious. It's first and foremost networking. It's for us to sit down and have meetings and talk to my peers in other industries and other markets, even sometimes to talk to my own competitors in my own market. I meet them out at a restaurant and then we have a bar or a drink or something like that. But it's to understand what other markets, what people are doing, what's successful, how they're doing it, where they're seeing industry trends and growth and go and that sort of stuff. But it's also to then do that same networking with the manufacturers. So now I'm able to talk to them and give them an understanding of what we're seeing as potential issues or problems in the industry and where we need things to go in the future. So, I mean, that's really the core reason for doing a lot of these trade shows. Now, I'm not saying I need to go 4 times a year or anything like that. 1 or 2 times a year is more than enough. But there's 2 other reasons as well. But the networking is the primary reason. The second most important reason, I kind of started to hit on it, was the manufacturing aspect. To get access to the manufacturer's engineers, and I'm going to pick on like Sony, for example, although lately they haven't been sending their engineers, they've been sending more of their technical people, but that's still okay because those people have that direct line back to the engineers. But it's to tell them, listen, we have a problem with your product. I'm selling your product all the time. I'm selling hundreds of them a year or whatever. But this particular piece of it is causing us grief all the time. And for them to be able to literally hear that feedback and go back in the next model year and correct that, which has happened before, or to tell us, well, this is why we dropped the 3.5 millimeter infrared input jack on the back of TVs several years ago. Because, it may only be $1 or $2 to put it on, but we manufacture millions of TVs a year. So that becomes, $100 million expense that, less than 1% of 1% of 1% we're using. Now, And that's that light bulb effect going on. Okay, now I understand why manufacturing is doing what they're doing, and they're also now hearing from us. These are our pain points. This is why, say, the software that you put in and you force an update in the middle of somebody watching a movie, why that's not a good idea, that sort of stuff, where they don't think about that. I've got manufacturers that come out with pieces for the racks, and we all love to dress our racks and make them look really pretty and nice and smooth. Well, one year after another, the manufacturer, the power cords were flipping from side to side. One year, the product line, they'd be coming on the right side. The next year, it's on the left side. The next year, it's back on the right side. And we literally had to point that out to them and say, listen, this is a nightmare for us. You need to be all on the same side of the rack. And because the people that are manufacturing and designing these products don't think that. Some of them may come from our industry, but they may not actually be active in the industry or have forgotten that aspect of it and didn't put those pieces together. So that was that light opening. Of course, the third reason is for the training. Now I do a lot of training with CEDIA and host a lot of trainings and stuff. So I don't get around to a lot of the trainings, but I get to some of them. But this is, especially with the CEDIA Expo, this is the one time of the year that we literally tell all of our customers, we're going away. We're closing down the business for a week. You can call us. It may be 4 hours to 8 hours before we get back to you, but we're literally bringing every technician and every salesperson to CEDIA to get trained. This is their opportunity to get exposed to the new products, to see what's coming. Me personally, I love to walk the trade show on the Saturdays because it's dead. And I know that used to be on the Sundays, when CEDIA had the trade shows on Sundays. I'm hoping that we don't lose those Saturdays because that's my time. I don't like fighting the crowds to see the product. I enjoy being able to walk up to the booth and spend my 6 hours or 7 hours on that Saturday going from booth to booth, looking at the new technologies and asking those questions. And that's the time of the year that we actually then start to evaluate, looking at new products that we might test out, we might play with, we might bring in-house for a couple months and see how it works because we saw something at Expo or a trade show like a VIXA or something like that was pretty cool. It was pretty neat. It was pretty interesting and gives us that ability. So me personally, I don't see the virtual aspect taking over. It was nice. I know a number of manufacturers host them. I know CEDIA did some. My attention was, like I said, a nice 30-inch, 38-inch, almost 40-inch monitor here. It's too easy to get work done over here on the side when my training's going on right there. So
what's your message to the manufacturers listening to this interview? What should they do about CEDIA or Infocom or ISE or all the plethora of events?
You can't not be at those events. There's going to be that hands-on element that I can physically touch it. I can physically see you install it or physically watch you configure it. I can ask you the questions. I can see what other people are asking for questions. And sometimes that's more valuable than me asking for questions. Seeing what other people are asking, things that I hadn't thought of, and the light bulb goes on and goes, oh gosh, yeah, that's right. I need to know that. I forgot about that aspect of it. And in the virtual environment, you really don't get a lot of that. Some of that you did through the text messaging, the inline chat. But again, part of the dilemma of that virtual aspect is if I'm paying attention to the inline chat, I'm no longer listening to the instructor who's teaching anymore. So my attention's been split. So that's not the best element. Some of the manufacturers' trainings that were virtual weren't live. So I couldn't interact and ask those questions. You couldn't do some of that stuff. Some of it was live, and there was a lot of technology barriers to that live platform that prevented things from operating smoothly. So for manufacturers and vendors and whatnot thinking about it, I'm going to tell you for at least the next, 10, 20 years, I don't see trade shows going away. Do I see that we could do a hybrid environment of them? Sure. I think we could go and take some of the trainings and we could do some of the presentations and move them to an online format as well as being an in-person. Could you put, and I hate suggesting that, put a camera in a booth concept because that's never going to work. But, one of the local school districts here, I sit as a trustee on a school board here in Western New York, in Williamsville, New York. And with the whole pandemic, we went to a model called High Flex, which is a hybrid model where, we are putting cameras in classrooms, but we're teaching the teachers how to utilize that environment. It's not just a window into the classroom and the remote students are watching it. It's a whole new aspect. So teachers were actually given several weeks of hands-on training before this went live. They continue to receive product development and professional development on the Wednesdays so that they can increase and improve it. And we've actually started walking through some of the schools, watching how this actually interacts. And it's absolutely amazing to watch the in-class students interact with the students that are at home, that are all interacting with the teacher in the front of the classroom. I think there's something to be learned there that we could adapt into the trade show and make that high flex type environment successful, so that, yes, we can get access to people that can't travel or don't feel comfortable, especially this coming year, may not feel comfortable traveling yet, but can be that hybrid approach between the two. I don't see where we're going to replace the networking aspect, though. And as I said, that's my number one reason, as well as my business partner and some of my associates. That's the number one reason why we go to trade shows, is to talk to our colleagues and peers and stuff like that. It's not the same as dropping an email or picking up the phone and calling them and talking to them, or sitting on a Zoom meeting and seeing them in person. It's not that same. It's not the same aspect.
That's so valuable. I had no idea, Shawn, you were so passionate around this subject. And it was a couple of days ago, Jeremy from Origin Acoustics had made a post on Facebook asking that question, or putting out the question. And it was if you haven't seen that chat string, you should check it out. It's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of replies on that, so much emotion on both sides of the issue. And obviously what makes it emotional is the concept of, I see Chuck signing off. He says, customer walking in, got to run. Great talk. Thanks, Chuck. Appreciate that. The variable here is obviously COVID. What role do you think the vaccine or your ability to get vaccinated, or your team's ability to get vaccinated in prior to the show, what role does that have in any decision making that you have or that you're thinking through?
I think it's going to make a major factor for everybody, not just for us as a business, but for anybody that wants to send people in attendance. I mean, public gatherings in general, we're very scared of it right now. And I know that changes from state to state. New York was a very heavily quarantined state, especially because the outbreak started here in New York City. Now, Buffalo, New York, just for the record, Buffalo, New York is nowhere near New York City. We're 400 miles away from each other, but right. We are the same state. So, but with the major outbreak, we took a lot of cuts and literally we're in some pretty heavy lockdowns for some portions of it, to the point where I think a lot of people still are very hesitant to do anything. I'll admit myself, I'm still a little hesitant. I mentioned the Buffalo Sabres at the beginning of this call, and I'm a season ticket holder, and they've reached out to us and said, you're interested in coming to games? Well, beside the product that's on the ice not being as stellar as we'd like it to be, I got to say that, do I want to be in a facility with at full capacity, 18,000 people, but even I think the rules right now, they're looking at 10% capacity. Well, that's 1,800 people. That still makes you a little nervous. I'm also a season ticket holder to the local theater here, Shea's Theater, which, brings 6-7 musicals a year around. I'm very hesitant to go and watching, Hamilton on stage again right now, because that's a closed environment.
I'm pivoting it back to CEDIA then. So I hear your passion around attending. What is your position on, are you going because you're vaccinated, or are you going irregardless of whether you're able to get vaccinated?
I will be going because I will be vaccinated, and so will my staff. And I anticipate, if I believe what our politicians are telling us, that by this summer, by the mid to end of this summer, and I know that yesterday our president came out and said that by the end of May, everybody should have at least the first shot. I'm optimistic that that's going to be reality. I don't know that will be, but I'm optimistic too that by the end of summer, I think we can have 75-80% of this country vaccinated, which does create that herd, vaccination and you're right, that it's going to be safer. And I think as summer, when summer comes, we all tend to venture outside and we tend to be a little less guarded. And I think that's going to help with our perception, especially I mean, if we were all vaccinated today, I think the perception wouldn't be there yet for us to go out in bulk, and to be with 500 other people, 1,000.
We've trained for 12 months to not do that, right?
Right.
So we're going to have to untrain that a little bit for patterns or habits to change.
Exactly. And I think this summer will help with that, especially with more and more people being vaccinated and us getting outside and doing the various local community things that we'll all be doing and going to the beaches and amusement parks and whatever. And it won't just be a flip of the switch. It's just every day is going to be that little bit more and more that we do. I think by the time that CEDIA rolls around the end of August, beginning of September, I think we're going to be there. I think we're going to be ready to go, at least from my perception. I think from our company's point of view, I think we're going to be ready for that. I know, as I said, everybody on staff right now has either gotten a vaccination, is scheduled, and some of them aren't scheduled until like middle of April, or in the middle of getting vaccinations. I mean, ironically for myself, I just got my first shot on Monday. So
New York is allowing, there's not an age restriction on the shot?
There's various groups and entities. Because we also are an IT company, that some of our customers are doctors and doctors' offices and stuff like that, we fall into the 1B classification, which is that first group of frontline workers, because we can be in those doctors' offices working on the IT aspects and stuff like that. So, and I know this changes, it varies from state to state, but yeah, for New York State, it started at 75 and up and frontline workers. And then that requirement got a little lessened or opened up a little more. It became teachers, and my own wife is a school teacher. So she's actually going, what's today, Wednesday? She's actually going to get her vaccination, her first shot tomorrow, because she falls in line with the teachers and that sort of stuff. So it depends on the states and of course, how many vaccinations there are, where you fall in line. But New York, because we can be classified as a frontline worker, that's how we're able to get in and get our vaccinations.
What is the status? You've been a longtime CEDIA instructor of a lot of the IT content, course curriculum developer and instructor. How's that looking? For this 2021?
For 2021, I think, in the sense of expo presentation.
Yeah, in the sense of that content, will you be instructing at expo this year?
I will be at Expo. I have one class at this point. I'm having a IT panel that I'll be hosting on the Wednesday, I believe it is. We are not, because of social distancing and the question mark still around that, we are not having any of the in-class instructing for the labs. So for those that have attended CEDIA IT trainings before, we put all the labs and we usually have 2 or 3 people, sometimes 4 people, depending on how big the class is, all sharing the networking equipment. Social distancing, if you got to do 6 feet, that's one person per equipment. Literally, you'd have, maybe 8-10 people in the classroom. So it's not worth bringing all that equipment. And that does sadden me a great deal, because I really am a firm believer that the hands-on labs and that sort of stuff is crucial to understanding and deploying and being able to play with this stuff. And I mean, I've taught everything from, some of the higher end advanced IT classes all the way down. Last year, they had me teaching one of the the fundamental classes. And I love teaching them all. I mean, even at the fundamentals, when people just don't understand any of the concept, is the first time they've ever touched a router or a switch and configuring it. It's great to actually give them that environment where they can break it. And we show them, how to troubleshoot so that they can figure out how to fix it, instead of us just giving them the answers. So I'm saddened that this year at CEDIA, we won't see that, but I'm optimistic that we're going to see the return of that next year. So in 2022, for sure, we're going to see those come back. And I know CEDIA's been trying to do a lot with, again, the virtual labs and the virtual training and stuff like that, which is great. So we can still get the training and the IT stuff done. But again, it falls back to that, being able to touch it physically and break it and fix it again. That aspect, there's nothing that's going to replace that anytime soon.
Shawn, we're there. That is time. I know you have places to be and things to do. How can those that are watching or listening, either live or in replay or through the podcast, how can they get in touch with you?
Everywhere. Website, www.soundandtheater.net. We spell theater the American way, so it's an ER at the end. They can get to us on Facebook.com/soundandtheater. They can email me, Shawn @soundandtheater.net. They can find us on Twitter at Sound and Theater. So we're all over social media and the internet.
Awesome. And for those that are watching, I am sharing the Sound and Theater website. So you're seeing the Sound and Theater, and you can see it soundandtheater.net. And you can see, congratulations on your new website, by the way.
Thank you. It looks amazing. Your team did a great job.
Well, thank you very much. You gave us some great content. I want to commend you. I was looking through your gallery before we went live, and there were some really fun projects in here. I love this. There was a I want to find it here. There was a theater. There it is. Look at that thing. All right, you got to tell us about this room. That's a pretty cool looking room.
This was a fun project. This customer loves his sports, so he likes the 5-screen, but he loves his movies as well. So if you look, you'll find some other artwork and clip art there on the new website that shows you the artwork on the side is actually, that's a different project, but the artwork that's on the side, those are actually album covers, LP covers that are our sound abatement that the client wanted. The wood there is from an old barn, so it's been refurbished wood. There's some other photos you can't see in this photo, but directly behind where the photo was taken is a bar, of which has the Han Solo refrigerator door. He's frozen in kryptonite from the Empire. Yep, there you go. So that's, and then there's also, I forgot about the pool table on this one as well. So, yep, you can see the Han Solo kryptonite door there. It's an amazing theater. What you don't see on the opposite side is that he's got a shoot off in this. He's got like a small arcade, a bunch of arcade games and stuff like that sit in there as well, from foosball to air hockey to you know what, and it all links back, simulcast to the monitors and stuff like that to this room as well. So this is definitely one of those more fun projects to work on.
Awesome. Shawn, I'm glad to hear that you're doing so well, and it was a pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks again for coming on.
Thank you, Ron. It was a pleasure.
All right, folks, there you have it. The one and only Shawn Lemay from Sound and Theater out of Buffalo, New York. And if you are a regular attendee or participant in CEDIA, you'll recognize Shawn's face because he's, again, an active volunteer and trainer and curriculum developer over there, which is pretty awesome that he gives back to all of you watching and listening, gives back to the industry in so many ways. Well, I want to thank you guys for tuning in. I'm going to let you get back to your regularly scheduled programming. I am going to remind you that this live video or this replay video is also available in audio only format. If you go to your favorite podcast app and just search up Automation Unplugged, you'll see it. You can subscribe. Don't forget to leave a review if you would be so kind. I would be indebted to you for a long, long time if you would leave a review. That would help more people actually see and hear the show. And here's our website, onefirefly.com. There's our phone number if you want to get in touch. And I will see you guys next week with another show. Thanks so much. Be well.